So just like what we did before, in this circumstance, we took a piece of scrap, we removed one of the sheets of paper from it. Just how we did before, right? You can just start kind of peeling back the paper from this side. Right, you can start removing that paper and just kind of hold it down with your thumb and just pull that corrugation off, right? So all you're left with is the paper piece. You can do that, or like we showed you before, if you got the garbage or a paper bag for sandwiches, you can just use that as well and just avoid the whole ripping off. So once we have this established, we're gonna grab a bit of glue, put it on the part that we wanna hide, and then take our piece that we ripped off and just tape that on there, just glue it on there. Push it on a little bit. I like to put a little extra strip on there just to kind of distribute the pressure of the clamps. And then you grab your little clamps and just clamp everything together, and it should stay in place. And notice that I left this piece long and this piece long, because to me it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna wait for this to dry, and then after, when it's complete, I'm just gonna go in line and flush cut that to the edge there. Right? There's no point of you being extremely precise with these little pieces that are acting as finishing pieces. So you can always just cut those after you're done. So here's an example of a column that we completed. Looks pretty seamless. There's one edge here that I still haven't completed, and there's a bit of an extra lip, so I cut the piece a little larger. So I wanted to show you how you can take a really flexible knife like this really thin knife, as opposed to this rigid Olfa knife, and use it to kind of flush trim these pieces. So be careful with what you're doing here, but you want to open the knife a little further than you normally would. And you'll notice how when I'm cutting here, I'm actually holding the knife at a bit of an angle like that. But because the knife is so flexible, it kind of wants to line up flush to this face. So I can push it up against here and then just kind of pull across, and very gently, just a few times, and we'll cut off this little extra piece that was left over. Right, so now there we have a very clean joint, right? There's one last one on this side. So again, place your knife on the piece, angle your blade a little bit, and then just pull very gently across. And watch your fingers when you're doing this, obviously, but it's a nice way to kind of just clean up a corner and have a seamless floor column. So once you've done all of that, we have two columns, we have a wall, and we have a roof. We can put all those things together and basically create our final model, right? So we have the two columns, and we did a little curved wall at the back here. You see how that looks. I didn't care to put tape on this side because that was going to be on the floor, and no one's going to see that. But again, once you've completed this little piece, it's also great, like we did before, to have a little scale person. You can throw that in there to kind of get a feel for how that person's going to experience the space, how you're going to experience the space, and what you've sort of done. Here's their base from the dollar store, $2, a little person, a model, right? It took half an hour to finish. So one more thing, how we did the curved wall, I guess we should kind of demonstrate that. That was pretty simple. We took, again, a Ziploc box, and one easy way, once you've completed your actual model, what's the best way to show it? You can actually just take your piece, take a long strip like we did, like we always cut before, wrap it around, figure out where you need to stop, and we're just going to mark it right there. So we'll mark that, cut this, we'll cut this piece of cardboard, and I guess we don't want to see the colorful blue side, so what we ended up doing is we just put them together and got rid of that. And now you have a more flexible wall that you can position wherever you need. So that's a quick and easy way. One thing we did for this one was we actually used double-sided tape. So it's a really quick and easy way of doing this. So just take a bit of double-sided tape, put it along one edge, trim that off, put it on the other edge actually, trim that off. We'll peel off the film that basically protects the tape, put that off, and then we can place our two pieces together. And there we go, we got more of a monochromatic piece of cardboard. Another thing if you want, you can kind of just roll it on the edge of the table. It'll help give it a bit more curvature. But there you go. And then on this side, I think we did the exact same thing as before. We took a little spring clamp, we just clamped it on there with a bit of tape, with a bit of glue, I mean. And then on the other side, we just used a bit of tape and hold it on this edge. So I know this is really rushed, but hopefully it helped. Hopefully you learned a little bit from it. We have a few models that we brought over from the first years from last year, just to show you what they've been doing. Here's a nice little example of something that you would probably refer to as a sketch model. It's some type of atrium space. You can see that there's several sort of floor slabs, and a little staircase indicator. It was all made out of this relatively rough, quick and dirty material, but it gives you a really good way to sort of visualize how this atrium space is going to look without having to go through the process of modeling all this digitally or so. This is a great little sketch model right here. These are some more refined kind of final models. Something similar to kind of what we did, just a really large roof being held up by two walls. Again, fairly simple model. Here's another one. This one's very, very curvy, but one thing you can see here, what the student did is they cut a bunch of little creases, a bunch of little slits through the material, not cutting all the way through, but just breaking that first surface. And by doing that, it allows them to flex this material a lot easier, because those little cuts allow for more of a, I don't know if you can see that, but probably not, but it just allows you to make a more flexible material out of something that's generally pretty rigid. But great little example too. This is a really nice one. Again, very monochromatic. You can see how the students used a different, very slightly different shade for some of the paved areas on their site, just to give a bit more context to the site. A great little model. Some of these are a little more refined. This one was made out of kind of like a beige cardboard, I guess. It's a bit more rigid. It's a bit harder to cut than the cardboards, but it's a little bit more durable as well. But again, great little model. Still very monochromatic. You can tell, again, what Jason was mentioning before, none of these models really have any glass or any like plastic material to represent glass. If you do your model correctly, you can identify, the person should be able to read what areas have glass and what areas don't, just by leaving little voids like that within the space. This is a great one. Here's another one, again, using cardboard. The students, we sell these dimensional lumber sticks here in the store. Unfortunately, you won't be able to get those from us, but you still probably can buy these off Amazon, or even if you went to like a Michael's or a craft store, probably find some of these dimensional lumber sticks. They're great for making columns or beams, or even these little slats. But yeah, this is a really nice kind of final model. And again, they didn't use any plastic. They kind of just identified by creating a little window opening and skinning that sort of edge of that window with a little wooden stick to kind of represent that this is a window glass. And again, another model very similar to the one we just showed before. Again, using cardboard, little wooden sticks, mostly monochromatic. They used two different they used a gray and a beige. I'm assuming one represents maybe cardboard, like a concrete, and the other one's sort of siding material. But it's a nice little model as well. I mean, in this sort of circumstance, like if the idea is basically you just want like a single pitched slanted roof, all you would really need to do, we already glued this in, but I guess you can still do it this way. If we just cut your wall on an angle, that should give you a slanted roof, right? So if your base was here, kind of, I don't know if that makes sense. If our base kind of lined up with that, now we'd have a slanted or an angled roof. So I would just how some of these models have depicted openings just by cutting out little windows. By cutting out little windows, I don't know if these are one of the, that's probably a door somewhere. But yeah, it's just a matter of cutting out a little opening, a little slot in your piece of cardboard to represent a door. Some students go ahead and they'll create a kind of like a windowsill to identify an opening, which is a great way of kind of hiding that cardboard edge. and identifying that that's an opening. This student went ahead and actually made like a hinge door, which, yeah, like a door you can, depends on the aesthetic that you want. You can even just draw a door, or if you have the little dimensional sticks, you can probably just even like frame out a little opening and not even cut it out. Right? We often recommend the white glue or the Well Bond, or even the Elmer's glue. The Well Bond is great. Again, the only downfall is that you get this really large nozzle, which isn't really great for fine details. But you can go and buy like a large bottle of Well Bond, and then if you have one of these lying around, you just pour it in here. And this has a really nice fine applicator tip, so it's a lot more precise. But these are great. The great thing about them is that they dry in about 15 minutes, and they dry completely clear. If you make a little bit of a mistake, you won't notice it as much, whereas the hot glue, it's going to leave all those little stringy bits. They're great for sketch models to get things just glued together really quickly, get an idea of form or scale, and then move on to maybe these glues, which would be a lot better. And then, yeah, a little tip like this: if you pour your glue out on a little piece, it'll start to cure over a period of time, and you'll have a thicker glue. And if it's been sitting here for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes, I mean, when you apply it onto a piece of cardboard, it'll only take another 5 or 10 minutes to dry instead of the full 15. Right? So you can kind of accelerate the gluing, the drying time of your glue. Super glue is good. You can use it. Just be careful. You're gonna have bloody fingertips if you spill it or don't use it properly. But it's a good use. It works just as well. The only thing with super glue, it's not forgiving in any way. So once you put the two pieces together, they're staying like that. Whereas with the white glue, you have that little opportunity to kind of slide it around back and forth, line it up perfectly, and then put your tape on and kind of clamp it in place.
May I caution people not to use super glue, because I've had students glue their eye open. Don't use super glue unless you're super careful and you slept the night before and you really know what you're doing. It's not usually necessary.
Hi there, I have a question. I've been finding a hard time to kind of glue the walls vertically, like perpendicular to the ground. So like, I know it's something that's maybe the height of the wall is like lower, you can use tape to do it, but if it's something that is really tall, even with the tape, you can still tilt it, right? So what would you recommend me to like pinch with something, with the wall?
You know what we did in this kind of circumstance where we actually cut an opening.
Yeah.
And then so again, even with the column, you can kind of stuff the column in there, and now it's a lot easier. Now there's sort of 2 points of contact. I don't know if you can kind of see inside there. No, it's too dark. But basically, it's being held by the top piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
And on the inside, it's being glued to the bottom surface.
So that would rely on like the thickness of the ground.
That would
basically.
Yeah, if you're making some type of base,
yeah,
or like a floor slab, it would be a good opportunity to even just cut this opening so you can slide your piece in there.
Okay.
Another thing, if you don't want to do that, you can also just cut yourself like a large supporting structure. When you put your when you put your vertical wall there, you can tape it to this supporting structure that should be a 90-degree angle. You should be able to kind of hold it from falling to one side or another, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like having like a scaffolding or a little jig in place.